Welcome to the Michigan Community Resilience Program Technical Overview. Thank you for arriving early. Please get comfortable, find out where the different icons are if you're going to be choosing to chat, speak into the chat, or by unmuting yourself later for questions. If you could please stand by so that the panelists can do a sound check.
Hey, Chelsea, could you take us through a sound check for each of the panelists, please?
Yep, Jason Alexander, can you please unmute so we could hear if your sound is working?
Okay, let's move on, Chelsea.
I'm here. You just had to unmute me too, so, yep.
Perfect. Melissa, can we have you unmute yourself so we can see if the audio is working for Melissa?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
I can hear you now, Melissa.
Perfect.
And then Carrie Smith from staff, a presenter. I see that you're on. Can you unmute and see if we can hear you? I think it looks like we're just missing Carrie's audio, Jenna and Christina, but I believe we can hear Jason, Melissa, Christina, and myself.
Okay, fantastic. And at this time, it's about 7 minutes before the start of the program. Do we have any people that have joined us so far?
Yeah, so it looks like we have Erin is on, Sandra, Sherry, and Sherman.
Fantastic.
We have a few people on.
Wonderful. So everybody, just hang tight. We have about at least, I think, 30 or more people that might be joining us. And so we'll be having just silence as we patiently wait for everyone to join.
I can see people starting to join us. Welcome to the Michigan Community Resilience Program Technical Overview. While we wait for others to arrive, if you could type your name and your organization in the chat.
Christina, I'm not sure if you were currently on mute or not. If you're typing, I think we might be able to hear you. Or Melissa, I'm not sure. Whoever is currently typing, just from our presenter side, we can make sure I think right now we have everyone on mute, so we just make sure everyone mutes and comes off mute. It also looks like too, as you are typing in where you're from, so there's two functions in GoToWebinar. There's a questions tab as well as a chat tab. So if you could please make sure you're clicking on the chat function to type in where you're from and your name. Looks like we had a few people submit it through the questions tab. So just a little tricky there with the GoToWebinar system. Thanks very much.
Okay, Christina, it's 3 o'clock. I think it's time to get started.
Great, thanks, Jenna. Welcome to the Michigan Community Resilience Program Technical Overview. We're glad that you could join us today. While we get started, I'd like to introduce you to your presenters. My name is Christina Colby, and I'm the Volunteer and Community Engagement Director at the Michigan Community Service Commission. Next, we have Melissa Sherry with us. Melissa, would you like to say hello?
Hello, everyone. Again, my name's Melissa Sherry. I joined the commission in November, so I'm fairly new, but I'm delighted to be here and to be able to support this great opportunity.
And next, we have Jason Alexander. Jason?
Hello, everyone. I'm the communications director for the commission, and I have the job of spreading the word about Michigan's volunteers and volunteer programs.
Thanks, Jason. Chelsea is manning the motherboard with us today and is helping to control the technology, but she also is a great asset to our team. Chelsea?
Thanks, Christina. So my name is Chelsea Holmes. I'm Assistant Director of Youth Initiatives and happy to be with all of you today on this webinar. Thanks, Christina.
Next, we have Carrie. Carrie's having some problem with his audio. Carrie's new to the commission and is our new disaster coordinator. And then to round it up, oh, there you are, Carrie.
Yep, I found it. Thanks, Christina. Hi, everybody. My name's Carrie Smith. I'm the disaster coordinator for our team. I'll be very excited about this opportunity and to share a little bit about what we do with you all today. Thank you.
Thanks, Carrie. And last but certainly not least, we have our executive director with us today, Jenna Holmes. Jenna?
Hello, everybody. I'm so glad that you could join us. I've been with the Commission for almost 8 years now. We're excited about this opportunity and the possibilities that's going to bring for our state and for the regions and where you are. So I think, Christina, we are ready to get started in our presentation, but Chelsea, I'm hearing a little bit of feedback. We might need to be muting a little bit there. So if everyone can put themselves on mute as we start the process. We thought it would be valuable to start. Some of you on the call know us well and have been a partner with us for quite some time, but we always think it's good to start with who we are at the Commission. The Michigan Community Service Commission began in 1991 during the Governor Engler administration. From that, what happened was it was really important for us to lead and support volunteerism, but then soon the President of the United States, President Clinton, decided to launch AmeriCorps. And then every single state in the nation then has a commission, and we are that commission that supports that effort. We then went on to, as far as who are we? We are conveners, connectors, and resource generators. We look for opportunities to lift up avenues for you to be able to be supported. And another thing to know about us is we have a 25-member appointed governor-appointed commission that serves with us and helps guide our work. There are 4 different focus areas that we have. And so those 4 areas, as I said, we started out in volunteerism. We have that as our cornerstone of everything we do. AmeriCorps, many of you know us as far as the entity that supports the state funding stream from the federal government to be able to provide AmeriCorps. We have over 28 programs now with well over 1,000 members serving in our state and doing some fantastic work. After Governor Engler then passed on the baton to Governor Granholm, she had wanted to start something called Mentor Michigan. And so as a result, Dan Mulhern, the first gentleman, took the baton from the First Lady, Michelle Engler. He led the commission as a chair, and they launched Mentor Michigan. The plus sign that you see in Mentor Michigan is, in addition to mentoring, we support youth initiatives and youth being engaged in volunteerism. And the 4th area is what we're all living through right now as far as with disaster. We are the lead entity for our state that supports volunteer and donations management in times of disaster. All of these different areas are woven within the Volunteer Generation Fund grant, and we thought we'll take you through those. But first, we want to tell you a little bit about our first, as far as our funder. Many of you know in the past, the federal funder was the Corporation for National and Community Service. They have chosen to rebrand, and they have a new name. You will hear us now refer to them instead as AmeriCorps, the agency. The brand that you see there with the wave is an official brand now, and everything that we do as far as with the funding that comes from the federal government is underneath this brand. So then you'll see as far as how they broke that down in as far as the next slide, which will show you how it looked in the past with the branding and how it looks today. So if we can move to that next slide, Chelsea. Thank you. So everything on the left is what it looked like in the past. So again, many of you that are in this world know this well. Some of you coming to us may not have been aware that the branding has taken place. So instead of having the A or the S or all those other things that you see in Volunteer Generation Fund with a V, all those have gone away. And so what you see instead is on the right. All of our programming, including the Volunteer Generation Fund grant, will be underneath this logo. So AmeriCorps, the agency, is the name when we refer to the agency. And then also in addition to it, so everyone's engaged as being part of AmeriCorps, but there are a lot of different programming efforts that were for older adults. And the Senior Corps program, as many of you know, and is now called AmeriCorps Seniors. So let's move now to what we're here today to talk about. So each state commission has an opportunity to apply for the Volunteer Generation Fund grant. And we're very pleased to let you know that we put our application together and we thought about it as far as what the needs were for our state. And we wrote it quite large, and we did not know if we were going to have success, but we want you to know that they actually awarded us everything that we asked for. And so we actually have received the largest Volunteer Generation Fund grant in the country, the largest in our history for the state of Michigan as well. Those of you that are new to the world of VGF, how it works is it's a 3-year funding cycle. So as long as we meet our goals, then we will be able to continue to receive that in the next year. So it's just over $740,000 per year for 3 years. The base of what the intent of the VGF is for our state and how we wrote it was to be able to ensure that we support COVID-19 response and recovery. And we're looking at volunteer best practices and training and technical assistance. And our idea behind this is we want to have a cohort of learning. So I'm going to let Christina share a little bit of that, and so we can start moving forward with our next steps.
Thanks, Jenna. You know, one of the most exciting things about AmeriCorps, the agency, awarding Michigan the largest Volunteer Generation Fund grant for this 3-year cycle is that when they have the confidence to invest in us, we know exactly what to do with that funding, and that's to invest it in you. So creating cohorts of learning by providing that training and technical assistance, and you're going to hear about some really exciting resources that the Michigan Community Service Commission knows because we've been on the front line with you through dealing with pandemic response and COVID-19. We know that these resources are critical resources for you to continue your work.
Fantastic. So what you see on the screen now is a regional component. Many of you also are aware that each administration looks regionally what those boundaries are. During Governor Snyder's administration, he had it as 10 prosperity regions. During Governor Granholm, she's looking at 8. There are 2 different regional maps that you will hear of. One is the disaster preparedness and planning map, which is the one you see before you, and the other is there's an economic regional map. Both of those maps have 8 regions, which can be confusing. The reason we chose the disaster map is because we are living through COVID. This is what we are asking to be able to respond and recover from. And so as a result, with healthcare coalitions that are supporting each one of those regions and also disasters, this is why we wrote this grant to be able to round these boundaries. We have the ability with all the data we collect to be able to do it by zip code. So we can all obviously also switch over easily to the economic recovery mode as well. So first I want you to be taking a look at that. Oops, keep it there on the regional, please. Chelsea, I'm so sorry. So what I want to walk you through a little bit is what you see on this page, on this slide. So there's 3 main areas that the Volunteer Generation Fund grant is intended to support. First, as I said, is COVID-19 response and recovery. We're looking and understanding that nonprofits need to have strength and support to be able to respond currently during disasters, and that is both COVID as well as other natural disasters, but also being able to have access to best practices to possibly have to retool and where do they go in the future. The second thing is we knew that because we're living in a virtual world right now, it was critical that we bring forward some really strong technology platforms. So at no cost for all nonprofits, but definitely for how we're going to manage this, we're going to be launching a technology called the Center for Volunteer Excellence Hub of Technology. And the third area that we're looking to do is to increase volunteers. How do we increase the number of volunteers making an impact? We know we have to look at virtual volunteering. As you know, many nonprofits had not had that as one of the pieces that they did as much. Everyone's learning how to do that now or expanding what they had done before. Skills-based volunteerism is very critical. And 2 other areas that we spoke to as with intentionality also with this is youth being part of the process and having their voice heard for solutions, and also looking how older adults can be engaged. Because a lot of our volunteerism sometimes happens with older adults, but during a pandemic, what does that look like to ensure that they're safe? So what I want you to hear is that we're looking at this as being a collaborative model. So when we think of collaboration, I want you to think of from all levels. We have access to resources that we're going to be able to pull together for all of you from the federal level, and then also because we rest within the state. Some of you may know that we actually are no longer in the Department of Health and Human Services, DHHS. We've moved in this last year to LEO, the labor and economic opportunity. But it also provides us with a lot of resources and access to information and elements that we did not have when we were in DHHS, which is exciting. And then obviously for all of you on your regional level and on your local level, that collaborative model shifts, but what we want to do is make sure we lift up as many resources as we can. So we want to have you think whomever is going to be in this with us and chosen as the grantees, we were going to form a cohort to share knowledge and offer resources among that cohort, but also will be supporting them to be doing the same thing in each of the regions. So let's look at some technical pieces of what you're going to choose for your grant. I'm so sorry, Chelsea, we're still staying on the map. So when you look at that map, what I want you to decide is, what region would you support? So we're looking at organizations that are not supporting just one community, but have the capacity and ability to be able to do outreach throughout the region or for a part of that region. And so it might be that you already have a collaborative element that is already created in a great partnership, and it may be in 2 different regions. Maybe part of that is in part region 3, and part would be in region 1. We don't want you to have to change your boundaries. So if you're already doing that collaborative work and your boundaries are different than you see in this map, write it the way you can support. And then what we'll do is we're going to look for partners for the rest of that region and how we do outreach. So that's one thing we want you to know. So you could do one whole region. You could do more than one region based upon your capacity. You could do part of a region, but we're going to need to know what that is as far as what you're able to do. The other thing we want you to know is look at the focus areas that you see on the right-hand side. Again, AmeriCorps, the agency, has picked 6 main areas that all their funding streams are around. And so we're going to want to track that data and look and see who are and how are we engaged with disasters and economic opportunity, healthy futures, veterans and military families, environmental stewardship, education. But we also want to be looking at social justice and diversity, equality, and inclusion. The one thing that you've probably heard on different webinars is when we think of the pandemic, it's more than just a pandemic due to health and COVID-19, but people think of it as 3 major pandemics going on at the same time. Because of COVID-19, it has impacted us also economically. And so we have an economic crisis on our hands. And we do know that nonprofits are at the cornerstone of providing support, but in addition, they're being impacted in dramatic ways. So how do we look at that during this time period? And then the 3rd level of the pandemic is what has happened and been lifted up that we knew was there all along, but the social justice and racism. As you know, our governor has said racism is an element that we need to solve, and she's putting it as a health crisis. So this is being elevated all the way from the top. This is something that we need to do in our state. It is something that all along needed to be done, and so I want you to know that this is going to be a key component of where we're going. So Christina, I'm going to turn it back to you so you can start talking a little bit about partnerships and some potential as far as what we might do from here. So Chelsea, it's now time to move to the next slide.
Thanks, Jenna. Each of you found out about the webinar today through our release of the request for proposals. In that request for proposals, we cite the eligible organizations, being higher education, whether you're a university or college, community action agencies. We know that those are backbone organizations and provide a lot of different services and have key partnerships in their local regions. Volunteer management networks are made up of dozens, sometimes more, organizations where the volunteer managers are constantly building the capacity of their organization and their community. Capacity building centers. They used to be coined as management support organizations, but capacity building centers are the organizations that are providing support resources to their regions already. Community foundations. We know that community foundations want to provide funding for different initiatives that suit their mission. They also like to give that funding to organizations that are healthy. So we know they're a key stakeholder here as well. And of course, United Ways. United Ways aren't just about providing an agency allocation anymore. They're about convening and collaborating around important issues. And then of course, volunteer centers. This list of eligible organizations, you may or may not be part of one of these types of organizations while on the call with us today. please don't think that this isn't for you then, because even if you may not be eligible to receive the funding, the work and the impact that comes out of this initiative can certainly benefit and impact all nonprofits across the state. If you are not one of these organizations, I would encourage you to find out what eligible organizations in your region plan to apply, and make sure that you're on that front line of communication, going back and forth, and look for those opportunities to partner within the initiative. Maybe a higher education institution is awarded the subgrant, but maybe the volunteer center can help manage some of the pieces that you'll hear about later in this call. Capacity building centers are all about providing training and technical assistance. Maybe that's a piece that the center could manage. But remember, eligible organizations are going to be considered the backbone of the regional effort. So we want all applicants to be realistic about the work that goes into this initiative and realistic about what they can accomplish.
Thank you, Christina. And the one thing I would add too is on that list that you saw, if you are an entity that has the capacity to do this, we may not have thought and have the right category up there. So please don't eliminate yourself. Please think through it, and we can talk offline about that to see if this is the right fit. But what Christina is referring to is there can be a backbone entity that does a coordination. We're not asking you to start a brand new nonprofit association or anything like that. That's not what we're asking for, a collaborative entity. You could, but we're not asking you to do that. What we're asking you to do instead is be the backbone support to help nonprofits throughout a region know how to access the resources that we're lifting up and providing for all of them. And how do we then have that conversation go back and forth, and what does that look like? So again, please know, if you did not see yourself on there and you feel this is for you, don't take yourself out of the running. Just have a conversation with us and we can talk about that. Because one of the things that could be is the backbone entity may say that they want to do some sub-granting out in their region, and we can, again, identify what that looks like. So one of the big pieces is we're in a disaster. So we're going to move to the section on disaster response, overview and recovery, so you understand who we are, what we've done. So historically speaking, so you know, before I came actually this 7.5 years ago, we didn't have any major disasters to the level as far as a federal declared disasters to the level that we have had since. One of the first major ones was in Southeast Michigan flooding, was in 2014, and then a different one, the Flint water crisis. And then we've had a series of different ones in mid-Michigan and in the Upper Peninsula, and then as we're all living through it right now in COVID-19. So when we look at that response, we've learned from each one of them, but COVID-19 has really pushed us to actually have to think even broader and differently. So in our next slide, when we start looking at the COVID-19 response and recovery, for you to know, because our two sweet spots are around, and Chelsea, if you can move, thank you, to donations management and also volunteer management. So what we did in this initiative was we looked to see, we were one of the top states, as you knew, Michigan was, and so all these donations were coming flooding in. So we worked as a team with people from the Michigan State Police and the governor's office and us, and we brought in as many donations as we could for personal protection equipment and put it out there, and it's still happening now. I still get donations that are coming in, and we're helping with vulnerable populations. We're working, DHHS is also doing a lot of work on this. They have the site that is overseeing everything. So we have a Michigan Mass Aid campaign. In addition, Christina did a great job of lifting up as far as volunteerism and using a site called Get Connected to be able to have a COVID-19 volunteer team. And it was stood up to the governor's office and us in partnership. And as a result, there are a lot of people that are engaged in that. And also, we know that disasters start locally and end locally. So as a result, all of you, and it was important, was for volunteer centers and United Ways and everyone that was in the mix and that was doing this work, we needed to push volunteers to all of your communities to be able to lift them up. And so we did that work as well. But on top of all that, we were the very first state during COVID-19 to also have a natural disaster, which is the mid-Michigan flooding. So what you're going to see is when you look at the next slide, the devastation that occurred there. I'll wait until Chelsea gets us there. If you haven't seen this picture, it really kind of takes your breath away. So when the dams broke, many people were referring to it as the Midland flooding, but it was beyond Midland County. A lot was happening in Midland, and it still continuously is devastated there. but also Gladwin County, Saginaw, Aranet County, and a few other auxiliary counties around that area have been hit pretty dramatically. So as a result, we needed to think in a new way what that would look like, and how do you support during the times of COVID-19 and the pandemic, and how do you provide support? So one of the things is we have some resources, and so this is for you to be aware of it and to help you understand, even from this perspective, you don't have to, for the backbone entity, run this. What we want you to know is what we're doing, and so we can together identify who should be at this table. So we talk of things in disaster as called the blue skies and the gray skies and stormy skies. So we're in the middle of all those right now. Definitely in Midland right now, they are probably in that gray sky period because you're having to do an awful lot of lifting up. But then there's some that would say that we're in blue skies. But with COVID, many of us all feel that we're all operating in gray skies. That means that we still have a lot of response and recovery work we have to do. So what we want to do is Carrie Smith is on the call, and he's going to be leading this work, and we're going to be looking at each of the regions, and we have some funding to do it, to help develop community preparedness plans. And so that means is what we're going to be looking at, we've got some volunteer management technology, we have a donations management support technology, some case management, and also we're going to be looking at some consultants to support that preparedness planning elements. So as a result, we're going to be learning from what we're piloting now and attempting to do in mid-Michigan and from that flooding that had occurred because of the dams. But we're trying to look at this in a new way, and how do we make sure that it's those resources that are provided for all regions, and if we're prepared, then as a result, we can do it quicker and we can respond quicker and help people. So Carrie, I want to see if there's anything you would like to add to that to kind of do as a wrap up as far as what this means for them. And Carrie might be on mute, or we might be having some technical difficulties.
No, I'm on mute. I was just listening. I'm sorry. Again, as Jenna was saying, the main thing here for us is to not only be prepared, but also to connect a lot of our resources together. The ultimate goal is to serve and to help our communities and those that are in need. One thing that you'll find is people, organizations, companies, everybody wants to help. One of the problems, one of the things that a lot of us get stuck in is how to help. And we're just trying to put together the technology and also connect the resources so we can be very clear on what needs to be done, and then also develop a plan on how that is going to be done. And I think to support our communities, with everybody getting on board, sharing their resources, being honest in terms of what we can and what we cannot do, really goes a long way into supporting those that need the assistance, especially as Jenna alluded to, we are kind of all in gray skies right now. But we do need to do the work before, God forbid, any other natural disasters happen, so we can operate in the blue skies, kind of in that mindset of trying to prepare and get ready for these type of events. So that's all I have. I'll turn it back to Christina.
Thanks, Carrie. As we look at this new VGF, one of the biggest components I feel that we can offer, not just the regions, not just communities, but individual organizations, is an opportunity to access all of the resources in what we're calling the Center for Volunteer Excellence Technology Hub. There are several different components of it. We're going to start with the nonprofit guide, which is probably, all of them are impactful, but this one is probably my personal favorite. Jenna, do you want to describe the nonprofit guide, and maybe Melissa?
Yes. So I'm going to take you through the different pieces of some of the technology that we're offering. And what we've done is we've written this in as far as the cost for the platforms and launching the platforms within this. So there is no cost to this. You don't have to write this in as part of the budget. This is something that we're offering, and the resources that we're offering for the whole state and for nonprofits to be a part of. What we came across was there's different components, as you know, in managing volunteers with technology as far as recruiting, and Christina's going to talk about that later. But there's another piece of this is how do people know how to help? So there's a firm that actually a nonprofit, excuse me, and he made his mark in Silicon Valley out in California, and then he came back to the Midwest where his roots were, and he created a nonprofit, and he just kept developing great ideas, and this was one of the things that he did, and there's a couple of them that he's going to offer us. The first area is what the nonprofit guide is. It's helping in this time, which is really important, of during COVID and the pandemic, to have nonprofits tell their story. Tell the story of how they're making impact, and two key pieces there. With then just a button, people can look and see, how can I volunteer? How can I help? Or how can I donate? And so the story is told, and that's really important, but it allows people and organizations, so individuals can go to the nonprofit guide. If we build this well, and if this is here, this is a piece that I think all of us together, if we strengthen this nonprofit guide, if we have it, imagine what we can do. People that want to, for example, look to see how they can be engaged and involved with social justice. They can Google it, search in there, and then they can identify how they can help, maybe virtually, as a volunteer, as a skills-based volunteer, and or donate. If I don't know as an individual that I want to help who is doing what, I am not going to be able to know how else in the state or in my region to even offer that assistance. This allows for those stories to be lifted up, and for all of us to work on building this strongly, I think can really have ramifications for all of us. Community foundations are very interested in this as well, because one of the things is community foundations that are out giving grants, they want to be able to sustain and support the work, but they also know that grants and foundations cannot, and corporations can't give all the funding. So individuals, as we all know, are one of the biggest elements of ways that donors can give. But again, we can't do it if we don't know. It also provides us with an opportunity to really build some strong things. For example, we've been talking about throughout our state and the nation, and people would like to be able to identify BIPOC, nonprofits. And people have been asking, who is that? Where are they? This is an area for us to be able to do that. We can actually, all those 6 focus areas for BIPOC, we can add in, we can allow then people to actually be searching and allowing, if they want to support or work and lift up the great work that they're doing, this is an avenue to do so. So for you as grantees, what your role would be with this is you're going to help us build that. We're going to help get the word out, a simple process. Melissa is a person who's going to be helping do this. And so is there anything that you would like to share about the nonprofit guide and your work as we go forward?
Well, as everyone can hear Jenna's excitement, I also share that excitement. I'm very much looking forward to the impact that this is going to make on our state and within our nonprofits. So I'll be looking to all of you to collect those stories and to be able to get this started very soon.
Fantastic. So our plan is to be launching this as soon as we can in 2021. We are going to be learning again how to do it. This is not on the heavy lift, is not all on your shoulders. This is all of us doing it together and identifying how to do that. But the more we can build this together, is that whole level of partnership of everything we talked about, the stronger it's going to be in the region and in the state. The next element of the platform is the same entity built, is a skill-based volunteerism platform. Before the pandemic hit, we had reached out, and some of our commissioners, both we have Heidi Magyar from General Motors and David Parent from Deloitte. They are leading the charge and chairing this group that they wanted to launch what's called the Corporate Volunteer Partnership Network. And with that, it's to allow the corporations that are having employee engagement and volunteerism occurring, they wanted to get together and share best practices and support each other. So this is also written as part of this grant as far as the Volunteer Generation Fund grant. But one of the things that they asked for was, wouldn't it be great if we had a Michigan version of a skills-based volunteerism platform? Some of you may have heard of Catch a Fire and Taproot. That's national, and those are fantastic. But what if instead we did this on a Michigan level? So this is us going to be doing that. So together what we want to do, and so what your role in helping us would be, how do we encourage volunteers that want to be able to support in skills-based volunteerism ways, as well as how do we have nonprofits know how to access it? Because one of the things that I mentioned before is we have nonprofits that during the pandemic and as we respond and recover, that they may have to retool where they go. One of the pieces to help them would be what if we had skills-based volunteers that were able to form a team and do some project management around and help them figure out what their next steps are. Some are talking, would they join together with other nonprofits? Would they rethink how they deliver their model? But this gives another resource for them to do so. And then the third area is the Board Connect platform. So with the Board Connect platform, it allows nonprofits to develop more diverse boards. So it is critical to have decision makers, a diverse group of decision makers sitting around the table looking at where and how things are formulated as we go forward. But part of the challenge is, how do individuals know how to apply when they're board positions, and how do nonprofits know how to access individuals that have that interest, and so that there is that diversity. So the Board Connect platform is, again, another no-cost platform that we're planning to build, and it will allow individuals to be able to put their profile up there. And there's also, with all those things I've described, we'll be having special things. For example, in a particular region, we can host something, and it could be around a particular, as far as board development, and people that are interested, and nonprofits that are interested in expanding, and almost like you've seen speed dating before. There's those pieces that can be done. The same thing can happen with skills-based volunteerism around special topics. Again, like I was referring to as far as when we look at social justice, we could have a whole project just around that, so that people that want to give their time and energy, as well as nonprofits that are looking for that support, then it's a matching system. And this platform is going to do that work for us. So this is an exciting piece for us that we're excited as far as where it's going to go. This first year is building it, as far as how do we have people engaged in piloting it and making sure it functions well. So the next platform that is in there is for youth, and I'm going to turn it over to Chelsea to be able to share a little bit about what we have going on for youth volunteerism.
Thanks, Jenna. So as you all can see here with this component, we have some exciting things in terms of service and engaging youth in that service. So, you know, as Jenna mentioned earlier in the conversation around the Volunteer Generation Fund, we really want to make sure that youth have a voice in how to solve those challenges in communities. And the main way through this opportunity will be through another technology platform. So it is called Interview. There are a lot of wonderful things around that platform and that tool, but a few of the highlights are it's aimed at between 13-year-olds to up to age 25 and how they engage in their service. So there's a really simple app, an application they use on their phone that youth will go on to and log their service hours. Through the log of the service hours, they have to connect each of their service activities to a global goal. So one of the 17 United Nations global goals. There's a photo they upload, and then a brief description of the service that they complete. It's really quite as simple as those few steps. And then from there, Interview helps to create a service resume for the youth. And again, kind of reshifting this mindset around service and why we serve and why youth are out making differences in communities, but connecting it to that technology piece to around youth service. There's data that then can be generated from that in terms of advisors and the adults that are supporting youth in that service. There's also a piece that we'll be doing here within Michigan. There will be specific Michigan service awards acknowledged through the governor and the governor's office that youth can receive on an annual, as well as when they graduate from high school. And there's also a national awards opportunity, again, through the United Nations, through the Interview technology platform. So that's a big piece here in how youth will be engaged within this opportunity, as well as we have a VISTA program that we coordinate through the Michigan Community Service Commission. And the mantra and foundation of that Youth VISTA program that we have here is supporting youth through mentoring, youth development, different social justice issues, and really looking at how do we help youth in engaging in communities and making a difference. So for you to note there, we will be releasing applications to be a host site within our AmeriCorps VISTA program in the springtime, to look forward to our fall of 2021 start date for that. We currently are engaging with more than 30 VISTA members and host sites across the state right now. So in terms of the opportunity for this Volunteer Generation grant, it would be for you to encourage schools and other partners within your network to utilize and use the Interview technology platform and engage youth in that way, as well as how do we make sure all youth across Michigan know about the governor's youth awards and how to apply, again, through the Interview technology platform. With that, I will pass it back over to Christina, I believe, for Get Connected.
Thanks, Chelsea. Many of you on the call, I'm well aware that if you're not familiar with Get Connected, or excuse me, if you're not the host of a regional Get Connected platform, you are at least familiar with it because maybe your organization uses it. Get Connected was launched at a statewide level at the onset of the pandemic, and it truly was such a successful launch in the sense of not only did it allow thousands of volunteers to register when Governor Whitmer urged them to get involved and see where they could help during the pandemic, but we were also able to drive traffic, the online traffic of volunteers to other Get Connected accounts throughout the state. Moving forward with this VGF, we're going to be connecting all of those accounts so that when you log into one, you can find your way to opportunities in others. And that's what this is all about. It's about connecting communities and connecting the successes that volunteers bring and the impact that they make. We also have a very similar platform called Ready. Ready is provided through the same software company that Get Connected is. So it's very familiar to those that already use Get Connected. Ready helps with disasters. So you'll be hearing more about that as Carrie is empowered to roll out his work and the resources that come from the funding that is focused on disaster work in regions and communities. So now the future of volunteerism and service, especially when we look to the horizon because of the pandemic, we've definitely learned a lot in the last, say, 8 months since the onset of the pandemic. And that is that it is imperative that nonprofits are properly equipped and at least aware of how to keep their volunteers safe, those that they are serving safe, and above all, their community safe. But that doesn't mean that we don't need volunteers or we should all just go home and stay there, because there's lots that we can do right from our own home. So volunteers are going to be working virtually. They already are, but what are those safety best practices around COVID-19? Is it that we can still serve together, but maybe socially distance? And there's certain protocols that an organization needs to put in place to ensure that their volunteers are safe. We are going to be developing a library of learning where you can log on, check into our website, and there will be a plethora of learning opportunities, whether it be around volunteer management best practices, maybe it's tips and tools, toolkits, and you can learn from each other's stories. So there's going to be some peer networking that's going on. There's going to be regional networking that's going on. And then there's a state level cohort, which are going to be the grantees of this award. We'll have that state level cohort as well. So the learning is going to be full circle. We're going to take it from all the way at the top, right down into the trenches where our volunteers are serving. Melissa's going to share with us some of the things that organizations can do to access the resources of this grant, even if they're not the sub-grantee. And we're going to rely on our sub-grantees to help share and promote the messages and the resources that are out there. So, Melissa?
Yeah. So as part of this effort, you've already heard about the training and technical assistance provided by the Michigan Community Service Commission. And Christina touched on the trainings that will be offered throughout the year. And I wanted to mention especially that there will be an annual calendar of free events that you can access virtually, and then they'll be recorded so you can use them afterwards. But we also provide your organizations access to grant opportunities through the National Days of Service. As you can see here, there's 3 of them that are listed. Martin Luther King Day, which we're organizing right now, Global Youth Service Day, and 9/11 Day. These are great opportunities in your community to do projects to engage volunteers. We are currently offering support grants for Martin Luther King Jr. National Day of Service, which this year it is focusing on COVID-19 recovery. The grant is open now, and we are planning on doing a second round in January to extend the grant because of the great impact that it has on Michigan residents. We're seeking to partner with organizations who can recruit volunteers to do things like sew children's masks. We have the masks, we're looking for people to sew, and then have them distributed in those communities to organizations that serve children. We also have grants for support packages of PPE and cleaning supplies to keep children safe in those programs. And we're also looking for volunteers to help with care packages to thank and honor our healthcare workers. And we were hoping that groups would partner together, create food baskets, bake, cook, and also engage others, you know, if it's a keepsake ornament or cards that they could make to make it a big community effort. So we're going to be pushing more information out. Like I said, that grant is open now, but we will have another round in January, and we were hoping to get more groups involved. In addition to the great support of volunteers, local communities through National Service Days, we also offer the Governor Service Awards. We help organize those. And Christina's going to share how we help recognize the good work of community volunteers.
Yeah, thanks, Melissa. I have to say, you know, having spent nearly my entire career in volunteer management, recognition is really a cornerstone for volunteer involvement in the community. Not only is it important to recognize those outstanding volunteers, but you can use the recognition that you lend those volunteers that have served so well as a means to inspire others to serve. It's kind of like catching that wave. So our Governor's Service Awards is a premier event that the commission has held every year. The pandemic threw a bit of a hurdle for us, but we're going to overcome that. Through this next year, we'll be holding Governor's Service Awards online. We also have the Heroes Campaign. Jenna, do you want to tell us a little bit about that Heroes Campaign?
Yes, because of the challenges, as Christina said, and we are not able to do in person recognition, and we're even looking into 2021, and many of you and profits throughout our state are going to have to be doing some catch up, right, as far as a lot of their different events. We're trying to identify, we might even have to do our Governor Service Awards in 2021, even some virtually or smaller based. So what we wanted to do is actually, we had this idea of what if we launch a Heroes Campaign. And this is different, where it's not a peer review of selecting the top ones with the governor, but all individuals can, as long as they meet the basic criteria, can put someone forward or an organization forward in a variety of ways, starting with what and who has made a difference during the pandemic. So imagine if we had a map of Michigan, and throughout each of our region, we actually were able to see the difference in each of those regions of people and organizations that really rolled up their sleeves and responded with resilience and grit. And it's inspiring. And so what we want to do is be able to have those stories there and then be able to lift those stories up. But let's not just stop during COVID-19. Let's continue that whole concept so that it can even build to the crescendo around Governor Service Awards, where all of those different areas of the environment, there are many things that people have been continuing to do for all of those 6 focus areas we talked about, and also with social justice, that we want to tell their stories. And as we know, people that do it do not want the recognition, but the importance is if we can inspire others to begin to see how they did make a difference, that they can see their path also to being able to support and make a difference in our communities in our state. So more to come on that. Our hope and our goal is we're still working on the final elements of the technology to support it, but our intention is to be able to be launching that also early in 2021 so that all can be engaged. So Christina, let's wrap it up with allowing people to understand, what does this mean for management and reporting? And so I will just say that as Christina starts to go into this, think about it in this way. Our attempt today was to allow you to see everything that you saw in that application we've touched on. But our intention is not for you to be the one to have to take care of it all. We're there with you. We're working as a cohort, but it's truly trying to figure out, how do we crack this so that we can have it so that nonprofits and organizations and entities have access to these resources? So Christina, how would you talk a little bit about the management and reporting? Because I'm sure that will be on what with people's minds.
Yeah, thank you, Jenna. You know, the main thing that we want you to leave this session today with is that as you prepare your proposal or your application, we don't expect you to have a complete plan for each of the components that we ask you to answer to. We don't expect you to have a plan exactly on how you're going to build that online portal for recruitment. We have that for you. What we want to hear from the ideal applicants is how you're going to work together with other organizations in your region, whether it's key stakeholders or just the dozens or maybe hundreds of nonprofits that can access these resources. We want to hear from our applicants of how you can help get these resources into the hands of the nonprofits that need them. So please don't feel that your application needs to lay out those plans. We're going to walk with you every step of the way, as Jenna indicated. We will provide you with updates from the platforms. This is the most exciting piece to me. So many times when you get a grant, you spend so much time during that grant cycle collecting data. This particular grant is not about you collecting data. It's about urging use of the resources, and then we're going to provide you with that data. We're going to help you see where the organizations in your region need assistance. We're going to help you see how much volunteerism has made an impact in your region when they're using the Get Connected and the Interview and the Board Connect. We're going to be providing you with that data. That's exciting stuff. We see that as a pinnacle point in this initiative to really make an impact, not just at the state level, not just at the regional level, but really at the local level too. So systems to track data in the region, if you can assist getting nonprofits and organizations and programs to use the resources that we offer, you will be able to access that data from us. There will be quarterly reporting throughout the grant cycle each year. This is a 3-year grant, and you'll be reporting quarterly with good stories in the data. Not so much a lot of time entering data, again, because we're going to be providing you that data. But we want to hear how it's going from you continuously. There is going to be a calendar for the state level cohort, which is the 8 to 16 grants, I believe it is, Jenna. Where we will be convening you regularly so that we can present you with the resources and how to access them, and then assist you with pushing it out for promotion. It's during those times that we'll really look for the good stories from you on the impact that this initiative is creating in your region, therefore the state. Jenna, did I miss anything?
No, I'll just add a few things that may come out in the questions, but I'll touch base on them now because it might be something that will help you. We reference the fact that we have Get Connected, but we do not expect regions to use Get Connected. If your region, if your area is using completely different volunteer management platform, we're fine with that. We are going to set up a system that's easy to be able to collect data no matter what platform you have. But the reason we want to have Get Connected available is for those nonprofits that right now cannot afford and would like to be able to be using this. It's an avenue for them, for us to support. The other question that may come up too is, what is the percent as far as indirect costs? The federal government does put stipulations around. There's only so much of the grant that can go towards indirect costs. And so I do know higher education. I came from a higher education background. I was an administrator. And oftentimes higher education will put that pretty high. Even for the community grants that they do, it's pretty high. The federal government is going to set those regulations. So I do believe that also will help you, because if a big percentage of this has to go instead going back to the institution, what we have to do, hopefully with some of your institutions will see the greater good of this and recognize that instead we're trying to drive these resources out to be able to support you and the work you do to support nonprofits. And that's what it's all about. So that's all I had, Christina, to add to it. And then I think you can open up for questions.
Great, thank you. Now,
so Christina, I actually have a few questions that have come in the questions tab. Not sure if you want me to start with those. They've come in kind of throughout the webinar. Does that work in terms of questions?
It does. Thank you, Chelsea.
Perfect. So let me scroll up to the first question here. So a question came in around if we already utilize Get Connected, you know, kind of what do we already do if we already utilize Get Connected in our region? Question number one.
I'm sorry, can you say the question again? What if we already use Get Connected?
Yes, so the question came in is, what if we already utilize Get Connected in our region?
That's fantastic. So the subscriptions of Get Connected across the state that already exist, I believe there are 18 subscriptions across the state. And each of those does work within a region, whether it be one county or maybe 3 counties. Some of them are actually even more counties. We are looking to create what's called a data share agreement with all of those databases so that it will share information to the state level portal. And that's where we will be able to pull that reporting and get the data for you, where you can have state level data and drill it right down to your local. We love hearing that communities are using Get Connected.
Perfect. I'm just scrolling to the next question. Give me a moment here. So a question came in on if they're accepted as a subgrantee, when would the funding be issued, the project start date, and how long will projects be supported, i.e. 1 year? Question.
So Jenna, you could chime in here as well. We know that your submission deadline is January 15th. It is our plan to have these awards selected before the end of January. And the cohorts will be informed that before the end of January, and we'll immediately begin the work of meeting with the cohorts. So you'll essentially have a cohort orientation. Jenna, can you help me out a little bit with the grant cycle?
Right. So the cycle of the grant is, as many know, the federal grants are September 30th to October 1. So the data and everything we're collecting, obviously we're doing all of our building right now to launch this. So as a result, you will receive that first year of funding with a smaller time frame. And then the next round of funding would happen again starting October 1. So it's up to 3 years. As long as we're able to meet our goals, then AmeriCorps, the agency, will continue to provide us that funding. So it is for a full year. In addition to that, what we'll do is we will probably break it up into segments as far as how that is and how you have to invoice and what that looks like. There's some pieces already written in the grant you already saw, which is around what can you ask for. So it can be, let's say you already have staff time doing things. You can be, one thing I did want to mention too, that there's asking for a 2-to-1 matching. It has just recently come out, and some of you that follow AmeriCorps, the agency, may have heard this, is that they're looking to, in 2021, in this program year, to not require matching because of all the challenges during pandemic. What we would like to do is continually, actually, it's not just a year-to-year matching. If we can capture any matching that you have, and that's in kind or whatever, then as a result, we'll put that in here, and then that will lessen our match throughout the whole year, for 3 years. So we will probably still ask for matching, but please know if this is a tight year and you can't come up with other matching, then don't have that keep you from applying, because right now we have gotten approval for the first year to not require the matching component.
The next question up is for the regional map. Jenna, when you were reviewing through that, are subgrantees able to select more than one region? If so, is it possible to specify the exact coverage area we would target if you aren't able to support the entire region that we selected? Our organization falls within 2 different regions.
Perfect. The answer to that is yes. When you look at your application, you're going to see there's a checkbox. And so you're going to check, if you fall in 2 regions, check both of the regions. And then there's a narrative question at the bottom of that map that actually you are able to then list which counties you can in each of those regions. So then just put region such and such and the counties you're supporting for each of those regions. And that allows us to be able to make sure that we have the right mix to be able to support the whole region.
Perfect. A few questions have come in around Galaxy Digital. So a number of folks here use Galaxy Digital. Do you have any plans to try to share data?
Yes. Yes. That's the whole point of having what's called a data share agreement with each of the other subscriptions, so that we can share data.
Because one of the things for you all to know too is corporations are really excited about this concept too, about how do we start sharing data and how do we start looking at these things. The one thing to know is our data share agreements will be, we would never, and we're very sensitive around this, we would never ask for your individual volunteer information, and we would never like try and swoop in on that. We're looking for the data. We're looking to, because as you know, AmeriCorps, the agency, does that. We think that probably in Michigan it's underreported the number of volunteers and hours actually have going on. But until we set up our own infrastructure of a system to pull that data, we won't be able to know. But I do want you to hear, if you do not in your region get connected, that's okay, because there will be another way that we're able to capture those data sets as well, that it does not have to just be get connected that we're going to be pulling volunteer data from.
Mm-hmm. Jenna, I also want to add in that when I want to give them some examples of the data that we could pull from a statewide Get Connected portal. Imagine we have all the different subscriptions across the state connected. We will be able to pull data that shows, what percentage of volunteer opportunities that are registered across the state, are specific to food distribution, or is how many of these volunteer needs are connected to mentoring or youth organizations. How many youth are serving? There's just lots of different data sets that we feel will be very, very valuable, not just to us as a state to understand what the conditions are at the local level, but to you as local organizations and local backbone entities to really understand what the needs are in your community and how people are responding.
So I know we just have a few minutes left, but there's a few questions that have still rolled in here. So question around, can you be more specific about the 2-to-1 match? If the grant is $25,000, we need to provide $12,500 in match. What types of activities are and are not allowed for match?
Yes, and Christina, you can add to what I missed. So the 2-to-1 match means, again, remember, it can be in kind. So it can be, if you, even from your executive director level all the way down, if there's staffing, all you have to do is be able to identify the time you can use it. As far as in kind is even the facility, as far as where you're operating. So there's all kinds of pieces as far as what you can use for in-kind match. You could choose, if this was your work and you're putting more money or you receive other funding towards it, you can actually use it obviously as a cash match as well. So there's different ways that we're going to be able to try and be pulling in some of that match when we're working with our corporate partners and others. So we're going to be pulling from everybody. So we put the 2-to-1 just to make sure that we can meet what they want down the road. So remember, this year, you don't have to worry about it as much, but it would be good for you to be able to identify how you couldn't do match. And that way, then, if we can start collecting it, we will walk you through that as far as what that looks like. And Christina, is there anything else in particular that you can identify as far as for match?
I think the real important piece here is cash or in kind. Everybody loves when we read in kind match acceptable. And especially when we're working around volunteerism, don't forget the value of a volunteer hour. As well, you can look at your partners that convene around the table. Your typical match, in-kind match. Cash match is always nice to have, but it's not always possible. So I would just defer back to everything that Jenna just shared with you.
One other thing I just thought of when you're saying that, Christina, remember when I referenced the skills-based volunteerism platform? Imagine when we build that. Yeah. Everyone in that skills-based volunteerism platform that's putting hours towards it, we're going to be able to collectively throughout the state for this grant. If that's built up, we can collectively be able to come up with enough as far as match, even in some of those areas. So again,
for the interview, the youth volunteerism, where their whole goal being in there, a youth volunteer, they want to track their hours so they can achieve that Governor's Youth Service Award. Those hours will all be counted.
So we will be pulling from different references too. Even those platforms I referenced are all built from nonprofits, and what they're doing is they believe in this enough, and they're so excited that Michigan is piloting a lot of these big ideas statewide, that they're actually putting some skin in the game themselves. So they're actually putting some donations in. So provide what you have. This is one that we can help work through with you individually, whomever's asking those questions, to be able to support you.
The next question is if the VGF grant goes on for 3 years, do you plan to continue the local grants for 3 years? Same cohort each year or different cohort for each year?
Our goal would be the same cohort each year, unless in that cohort it's identified that it needs to be done differently. So we would look at that first cohort to make sure that everyone feels it's a good fit, or if we want to broaden it. Because again, what we're hoping to have is an entity in a region to maybe even choose, okay, maybe they would do it differently and provide some sub-grants out, and then that would be your call. So is the full amount of money that we provide go just to your entity to be able to coordinate it all, or do you want to sub-grant it out? And so then you'll actually be able to have some decision-making in that as well. But we think that it would be valuable for us to look at this as a 3-year grant for the cohort. But then we all know that sometimes things happen, and even those entities will ask for a shift. And we want to be flexible and nimble to allow and support that.
The next question is, what are the metrics for grantee success? Are grantees essentially tasked with sharing information about the technology tools being launched by MCSC?
Yeah. So I'll tackle that. So when you look at the questions that you see in there, they were designed on purpose because we have to give metrics around each of that. So we have to give metrics around the number of entities or individuals or organizations that sought out resources around technical and training assistance. So we have to track that. How many did they have learning knowledge? We have to give metrics around the total number of volunteers that were generated throughout recruited and or managed throughout the year, and the number of hours. So every question that you see in there, there's metrics that are associated with it. So the reason we didn't ask you in the grant to say, how many volunteers will you recruit in this year and how many volunteer hours? Because we want you to know that we will help together collectively create that goal. And we know that we need more of the infrastructure, because a lot of that's going to happen if you can do that outreach with partnerships in your region of entities to helping report in. So hopefully that makes sense to you. Again, just follow the application all the way down, and every single one of those, the questions around it. That's why we were asking those questions, obviously, is because together then we need to be able to report that to the federal government.
There's a question around clarification for the amount of grants that will be awarded throughout the state. So the description on the website page for MCSC says looking to make 8 to 16 grants throughout the state at maximum of $25,000 each. Will that be $25,000 for each year or total throughout the duration of the subgrantee?
Good question. Per year. The reason we gave that range is just like as we heard someone say, could we do more than one region? So what if an entity wanted to take 2 of those full regions on themselves? Then obviously, then the amount is even more. And then we're not going to limit it to just $25,000. And obviously, you would have that amount that's slated for that full region for both regions. But if you're able to only do a section of the region, we need to kind of magically figure out how do we give each one a piece of it to be able to have enough resources to provide support. So what you want to do is think through how much is your regional outreach and how much you're able to do. That does not mean your organization has to be in charge of everything. You need to be willing to convene. So again, if a particular region feels that the strength might be with United Ways, and there's a United Way that says, I'm willing to be the backbone convener to pull us all together. Or if it's to be conveners of all those, right, as far as community foundations and United Ways, et cetera. So again, we didn't want to dictate per region who felt that they had this as part of their initiative. Obviously, higher education has a footprint in more than one region. So as a result of that, that footprint could be wider than one region. So we know, like in the Bay Area has counties, and there's a consortium that's on a partnership that's created in the Bay Area that's pretty cool, and they have counties from different regions. So hopefully what we want you to know is ask us those particular questions, and we will help you be able to identify how to answer that for the grant application.
Perfect. I know we're a little, yes, there are a few more questions. Do we want to try and answer those, or should I record them and we can get back to them? What's best, because we're a few minutes over in time?
What we'll do is some people are going to have to sign off now. And then what we can do is, I think I have the time right now, and so does Christina. Let's go ahead and punch those out because it'll allow everyone to hear the same answers consistently.
Perfect.
So let's go ahead,
Okay.
but feel free if you need to sign off. This will be available, and Christina will be putting an FAQ together, which will allow you also not to have to listen to the whole recording to hear the answers. So go ahead, Chelsea.
Perfect. The question is around what is the current hourly rate we can use for volunteer hours toward in-kind match?
So that can be found on Independent Sector. It's a website, just type in Independent Sector. I usually can spout this right off the top of my head. But for whatever reason, I can't today. I believe it's like 23.47. I know I'm close. It's separated by state. So you want to go to Independent Sector, value of a volunteer hour, type in Michigan, and you'll find it.
So the few questions that have come in around wanting to connect with those that are on the webinar that are interested, right? So one question came in from, can you share who else from the Upper Peninsula might be on this call? Another question just came in around, can you share links to organizations that use the Get Connected platform? So again, I think, Christina, it's in terms of that follow-up post-call. And again, I assume those are yes. I wanted to ask the question because more than one person asked the question.
Sure. I think it's a good idea to know. It's the perfect question, quite honestly, for today is who else in your region has this funding caught the eye of? And should you be working together? The answer is yes. Does it make sense to work together on the application? I think it behooves each of you, if you know that there are others in your region that are on this call or plan to apply, I would strongly encourage you to reach out to the others in your region that are looking to do the same and determine if there's a way that you can divide and conquer some of the work or just submit a joint application.
Perfect. And this question, I wanted to ask it in case others on the call had a similar question, but a question around a person works part-time as a social work educator through a higher education institute. They also have their own LLC, and they've shared some ideas around what they have in terms of the subgrantee. So is it best to run the grant through the university that they work at, their LLC, or apply as myself?
I would think through capacity. So whichever, it's not for us to necessarily choose, it's for you to identify what gives you the most capacity to do so. And remember when we talked about that earlier too, that some higher ed institutions ask for a higher percent as far as what that goes back to the institution. And if that's a requirement and there's no budging on that, then this is a great way to work in partnership with the university and then maybe have the fiscal component be through a nonprofit instead of through the higher ed. If you can't work that out with higher ed, if they won't give you the, yes, we will keep our costs down and instead of ask for more indirect costs.
Perfect. I'm just scrolling through to see. Christina, for you to note, there's a lot of questions that have come through and kind of trying to lump them together around the match, right? So another question came in on, does the 2-to-1 match mean that if we get the $25,000 grant, we need to identify a $50,000 in match? So maybe if there could just be some additional clarification there, Jen and Christina, with the match.
Sure.
What if we do this instead, Christina, of going through each of those? How would it sounds like, and it's a really good point because you need to know fiscally what you're responsible for. So what if Christina puts together, we'll look at all those questions you had around match. We will highlight all that information and spell it out, and then we will send it out to everybody who's signed up on the call.
That sounds great, Jenna. Thank you. But quick answer to it, 2-to-1 match does mean that for every dollar you receive in grant funding, you need to match it with cash or in kind. So if you receive $25,000, the 2-to-1 match would be $50,000 in match, $50,000 in match.
Another question just came in around what are your thoughts, plans if you don't receive applications that cover some counties?
Good question. We've been thinking strategically about how we could do that, and we might actually look at some of the applicants that come in and negotiate and say, okay, in your neighboring region, we need some assistance. Is that something that you feel you have the capacity to do if we were to provide some additional funding? So we're going to look at some intentionality around it, doing outreach to those we think may have the capacity. But if they are not located in that region, we're going to go to those that might have the ability beyond their region to be able to provide support.
I think that concludes the different questions that came in. I know there's still about 20 people that kind of stuck it out to the very end here. So with that, Christina and Jenna, I'll pass it back to you. But I think we answered at least the questions that came in through the question box.
Thank you so much, Chelsea. Just a quick snippet on the screen in front of you. If you have other questions that come to your mind as you're working through the application, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. My email is there on the screen, kobeK@michigan.gov. We are going to be providing that recording link, and as Jenna indicated, we're going to further define what the financial details is when people were asking about match. We'll create that stock language, and we'll send that out to you when we send out the recording link.
Okay. Well, everybody, let's just do a wrap up. It's end of 2020, and so those that are still here and can hear it, take time to care for yourself. Know that as we wrap up the year, we've gone through a tremendous amount. We still have a road ahead of us. The exciting part about this is that together, it is our intent and hope to walk alongside you, as well as those that you know are in your community, to see how we can make a difference on people's lives who we know before this incredible crisis that hit us had already had challenges. It's exposed that to people in a new way. But I also want you to know that for all of us and our exhaustion of what's happened, for all of you, what you've been going through, we know, we've seen it, and we want you to know we care about you as well. And so please take care of yourself. And we are truly looking forward to 2021. And whatever capacity, please let's continue our partnerships together and identify how we can make things better. So thank you, everyone. Happy holidays, and look forward to 2021. Goodbye, everyone.